I can only urge the leaders of the world not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Not to sacrifice the future for the present, not to ignore aggression in the hopes of gaining an illusory peace. But I can guarantee you this: the days when the Jewish people remain passive in the face of genocidal enemies, those days are over.
That was one of the big applause lines yesterday in Bibi Netanyahu's speech before the Congress. The Israeli prime minister repeatedly bringing U.S. lawmakers to their feet in a joint meeting of Congress yesterday. But there was mixed reaction from Democrats. Dozens of them didn't go to the speech at all. Several others blasted the address immediately after it ended. I'm joined now by New York Congressman Steve Israel. He was one of the Democrats who did attend that speech. Congressman, good to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on, Martha.
So we just referred to those who were quite critical after the speech, some of your colleagues, and I want to show you first Nancy Pelosi's statement and then a soundbite from Congressman Yarmouth. Nancy Pelosi said, as one who values the U.S.-Israel relationship, I was near tears throughout the Prime Minister's speech, saddened by the insult to the intelligence of the United States. And here's what John Yarmouth had to say.
Prime Minister Netanyahu basically said that the only acceptable deal was a perfect deal or an ideal deal. He's like the child who says, I want to go to Disneyland every day, eat ice cream and drink Coca-Cola every day and not go to school. That would be a nice life for a child.
I don't know how you compare any of this to Disneyland, but what is your reaction to the insult to American intelligence statement from Nancy Pelosi, Congressman?
Well, two things, Martha. Number one, look, every member of Congress reflects his or her personal views and principles and values and the sentiment of their constituents back home. As for me, I've always leaned to the right on national security issues. I've been described as a hawk when it comes to U.S.-Israeli relations, and I'm going to stay there. Secondly, what counts is not what we say in response to a speech, but how we vote. And as Bibi Netanyahu said yesterday, whenever Israel has been in trouble, both parties have been there. Nancy Pelosi, John Yarmouth, and every Democrat, virtually every Democrat, voted to give Israel an additional $250 million for Iron Dome when the missiles flew from Gaza. Today, the Secretary of Defense will testify before my subcommittee, and every Democrat will support increased funding for Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 programs to protect Israel from missiles from Iran and elsewhere. So on that critical support for Israel, military and intel support, we are there and we've never wavered.
I got you, but you know what I heard from the Prime Minister yesterday is, you know, of course he would be supportive of that, no doubt, and encouraging of that, but he wants to prevent those missiles from ever coming in his direction, and he's very concerned that the president is about to give away the store and open a Pandora's box that may never be able to be closed again.
I've been skeptical of these negotiations, and I have said over and over, having been to many briefings, classified and otherwise, if the deal as it exists today were presented to me, I would vote against the deal. I agree with Bibi Netanyahu that no deal is better than a bad deal. President Obama has said that, and I continue to be very, very skeptical.
So, you know, we even have our allies, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, allies in the region who look askance at any kind of negotiation with Iran, who is their enemy. And I think they look at this situation and say, what's going on there? And you have to believe that the supreme leader of Iran watched this whole thing play out in Washington and thought, this is pretty good for us.
Well, I got to tell you, I have met with many of those Arab leaders. I get a little impatient with them because they want to sit back and let Israel and the United States solve this problem. And were we to solve the problem, they'd be the first ones to rush to the UN Security Council to condemn us and to condemn Israel. So their opinion of these negotiations doesn't really carry a lot of water with me. I do agree that the biggest threat of a nuclear capable of Iran is to its neighbors, all of its neighbors. And so if I were them, I would be very nervous about a deal that allows Iran to continue to have a capability.
But are you concerned, you know, that the president is giving away too much with this deal? I know we don't know the exact details of this deal yet, but basically Netanyahu said yesterday, look, I thought he made some concessions and opened some doors to some agreements that he would be comfortable with. But he said, you know, you have to have markers in this deal. So
yes.
if Iran is continuing to help terrorists all across the Middle East, then the deal is off. The deal ends. Do you think there's going to be that kind of hard and fast sort of breakpoints in this deal that will actually be enforceable?
I agree with Prime Minister Netanyahu on this. I mean, if there's going to be a deal, the deal has to be off when Iran continues to export terrorism, fund Hezbollah, add to the Hezbollah missile inventory, rocket inventory in Lebanon, support Hamas. There needs to be a change in behavior and not just an agreement on enrichment.
You know, but Nancy Pelosi watched this speech, as we just said before, and she said it was an insult to our intelligence, to American intelligence. What is she talking about?
Look, the optics of the speech, again, to me, are irrelevant. I do think that the speech was overly politicized. The fact of the matter is that Speaker Boehner did engineer this. Everybody knows it. He engineered this to get the very kinds of headlines that are appearing, to create
Congressman,
a perceived rift.
Let me interject.
No rift.
If the White House could have diffused that optic very quickly, they could have said, you know what, Mr. Boehner, we don't like the way you went about this, but of course we'll be there out of respect for our ally. But they didn't go that route.
Well, the Speaker invited the Prime Minister, decided not to consult with the President, but we have to get beyond this. You know, this is not inviting the uncle you don't like to a wedding. This is the security of the world, and we need to get beyond the optics and beyond the drama and get to what counts, and that is the substance of this deal.
Okay.
The optics have replaced the substance. That's not good.
I agree. So in terms of the substance, what will Congress push for in terms of their own role to be played in this process so that the White House can't dictate the terms of this without you guys having anything to say about it?
The initial components of the deal are supposed to be presented later in March. A resolution has been introduced that would give Congress sufficient time to analyze and review the deal and then decide whether or not we're going to impose additional sanctions. I think that's the proper way to go.
All right. Thank you very much, Congressman.
Thank you, Martha.
Great to talk to you today.
Thank you.